You know, this life that I have designed for myself, pretty peaceful. Just about 15 minutes ago, I was upstairs in my room and I heard some hollering going on. I heard a female's voice. Always stops me in my tracks whenever I hear a female out there hollering. So I stop and look out the window at one of my neighbors screaming about, "You know what you're doing? You're just trying to take my kids." Just screaming. And it's the mom that's screaming. Well, like I said, it's female's voice, but dude wasn't saying nothing. Looked like he was trying to just load up the kids and get them to school. I just got done dropping off my kids at school, so I'm assuming that's what the dude was doing. And it reminded me of the relationship I was in just before this one. We'd get into some arguments, and we both drank. And I was always more the type that wanted to be quiet. I never liked all the yelling and screaming. But the person that I was with, it's just kind of how she developed over the years, I guess. And I'd never been with anybody that did that. I'd been with, some women that, by my standards, I might have been like, "Oh, she's crazy" or whatever. But I'd say that in my head. I think it's dismissive to call someone crazy, especially since I'm not a doctor. But some people act crazy. But in that relationship, you know, she'd yell and scream and say all like the most vile things. And it was just to try to get a rise out of me, to try to see what she could get me to do. That's what I always assumed anyway. And I always got really confused about that. But anyway, it was just so unpeaceful. That's kind of what I'm getting at about that relationship. And it was a relationship that I chose to continuously go back to. That's the accountability I had to take at some point in time was, I could have kept blaming her for getting drunk all the time and just popping off all the time, or just seemingly always causing a problem, you know. Like she didn't work, she didn't want to cook or clean or hardly ever be home, just wanted to run around all the time. And she used to like to steal things for whatever reason. She was a big liability. It was a dumb idea for me to continuously go back to that relationship, but that's what I'm trying to say. It was something that I continued to do. It was my choice every time. It was a life that I was designing. And I'm looking at my life now and how peaceful it is every single morning. I don't drink. Um, I don't have arguments. It's just a huge contrast from how things were just, a little over a year ago. In That's why I'm so big on purpose, doing things on purpose, have a good day on purpose. Is I may not want you guys to forget, but I certainly don't want myself to forget that, the day that I have is the day that I choose. It's it's a it's a culmination of all the choices that I made, you know. And if I'm smart, I'll get up in the morning. I'll do stuff like this. I'll sit out here in my peaceful backyard, I'll get a little workout in or something like that. Um, I'll come on here and have a little bit of healthy dialogue. You know, there's nobody else here in the morning time, which I'm totally fine with. I like being by myself, but this is healthy to do. I'll come out here and I'll talk with the Lord and stuff and get my mind all primed and ready. You know, it's just a better way to live. I don't live, um, at the, I'm trying to think of the right word. I don't live at the, however the environment is the environment that I designed. I don't live in somebody else's environment. I don't live around people that, you know, cause problems and shit like that. And people like that who when people like that do come into my life, I know to get away from them and not spend too much time with them. You know, but I just heard these people over here arguing, and it made me think of that kind of stuff. You can try to stick stuff like that out, and some people make it work. But it seems like if you're to the point where you're yelling and screaming outside and stuff like that, and you're just disturbing everyone around you, that's you're not even thinking about the fact that you're disturbing everybody around you at freaking 8 o'clock in the morning because your life is in such turmoil. um, those of us on the outside perspective, we know what that person needs to do, and oftentimes the person even in the situation knows what they should do. They're just not willing to take the steps because it means that means probably a whole different lifestyle, and it's that sounds scary, but you either do it now or you do it later. That's the thing. If you ever decide you're going to have a different life, you're going to look back and be like, fuck, I should have just done it, you know, a month ago, 2 months ago, 5 years ago. So, you know, it just made me think about that. I just wanted to come on here and have a little healthy dialogue and, you know, tap in with the alcohol-free community. Make sure you guys are doing all good and everything. Let me know how you guys are doing. I hope you're doing well, but and let me know what you think about this topic. And it's always disturbing, people being out. There's nothing like hearing a bunch of yelling 8 o'clock in the freaking morning. When you're used to hearing the birds chirping and shit like that. All right, you guys, have a great rest of your day on purpose. Okay, God bless you. Stay alcohol free if you can. I'm out of here.